Hey everyone, in this video we're going to take a look at chapter 13 and the second story from the Road to Latin textbook called Discipuli. So like I always tell you in these videos, if you want more resources on the Road to Latin textbook or to see the story in a different way, feel free to check out my website. I have the story there. You can highlight the cases just to let you see them in a little different way, kind of color code the story, help you understand it. There's an English translation and a bunch of practice problems you can use too. So if that's something that would help you, go for it. Before we dive into the story again, you want to make sure that you have the vocab under control. Since this is the second story from chapter 13, you should feel pretty good about it at this point. But if you need a refresher, go back, take a look at the vocab. Just make sure you're feeling really good. If you use my textbook, you can find Quizlets for it. And I also have combined Quizlets that'll let you see all the vocab of chapter 1 through 13 in one spot. And you can use it to practice or turn it into a different version, something like a Gimkit or a Bluekit or whatever it is that you use. But the resources are at least there for you. So knowing the words is half the battle, right? It's very difficult to translate the story and understand if you don't know what the words mean. So start there and make sure you feel really good about it. The second thing is the grammar, right? Make sure that you've been practicing the grammar and hopefully it's starting to sink in and you're feeling more confident in it. Once you have those two things down, you're in a really good place to translate. And you just want to read the story out loud, right? So read it to someone to work on your pronunciation, find someone to read it back to you. I always tell you don't want to shut off your speaking and listening skills. It could be that this is where it really clicks for you and it really sinks in and helps you understand the Latin. And that's really what it's about. You don't want to necessarily just get too methodical with the translation. That is good, but you also want to read it for the language that it is. So never shut off those two avenues for learning. Okay. Once you've done that, you're ready to dive in. All right. So the story starts like this. You have Lucius et Aulus sunt filii Tullii et Cornelii. So you have two boys, Lucius, right, and Aulus. They are the filii, the sons of Tullia, right, genitive, Tullii, and of Corneli, right? So these are their two sons. Then you have mane ad ludum cum paedagogo ambulant. So there's no word in red here, which means there's no explicit subject. It's still referring back to the two boys, which is why our verb is ambulant. They are walking. So early in the morning, mane, they are walking ad ludum to school, cum paedagogo with their tutor, right? So they're being kind of escorted to school. They have their tutor with them, and they're on their way to actual school. You have pueri libros et tabellas et stilos portant. So the boys, there's your subject, they are carrying portant. Libros are books. That's my plural direct object, right? Second declension noun. So they're carrying books, and tabellas, like tablets, and stilos, pens, right? A stylum is it literally means like a column. It's a little pen that you write with. So they brought their books and they brought stuff to write with is really the idea. In ludo diligenter student, right? So they study diligently, right? Diligenter, they sort of eagerly or diligently work or study student in school, right? So it's trying to tell you that they are good students. Then we go on to the next paragraph. You have Orbilius est ludi magister. So Orbilius is the magister, right? The teacher of the school. Ludi is genitive singular here. And again, if you're curious, it can't be nominative plural because there's not more than one school. And it also wouldn't work in the context of this sentence, right? To say he is the school's, it just doesn't add up. So he's the teacher of the school, the magister, right? Orbilius est severus et pigri discipuli Orbilio non sunt grati. So it's saying Orbilius is severe, he's strict, right? Severus, right? So he's a strict teacher. And pigri discipuli, lazy, right? So pigri here means lazy students, right? It's your subject. Et is the conjunction giving kind of two different thoughts. So the first thought is Orbilius is severe, he's strict. The second thought is that lazy students, non sunt grati, they are not dear to Orbilius, right? So in other words, he doesn't like lazy students is really what's going on there. And again, this is that use of the dative with special adjectives. Gratus, right? Dear is one of them because you're saying you're dear to someone. In this case, they are not dear to Orbilius. So it's saying he wants students who are going to work hard. Then you continue, and you have si ludi magister iratos est, discipulos castigat. So if the magister, there's your subject, if the teacher, ludi, of the school, the ludi magister means like the teacher of the school, right? If he is iratus, if he's angry, castigat, he sort of chastises or yells at, or sort of punishes, you might say, the discipulos, the students. So in other words, it's saying if he gets mad at them, he yells at them, right? He castigates them in English, right? So he yells at the students, right, if they upset him. Tum pueri clamant et lacrimant. So it's saying then, meaning if they upset their teacher, the pueri, the boys, clamant, they shout, and lacrimant, and they cry, right? So it's saying if they make their teacher angry, he yells at them. And when he yells at them, the children, the boys, they shout and cry, right? They start crying because they're upset that their teacher yelled at them. Then we have the last paragraph. You have Lucius et Aulus, sunt boni discipuli. Okay, so Lucius and Aulus, they are boni discipuli, they are good students. Itaque ad ludum libenter properant, and so itaque, right? Properant, they are hastening or hustling, you might say, to school, ad ludum, libenter, sort of happily or gladly, right? So they're not worried about going to school because they are good students. Vespere filii Corneli a ludo ad vilam properant. So in the evening, vespere, right, at nighttime or at dusk, you might say, the children, or the sons rather, the filii Corneli, the sons of Cornelius, they properant, they hasten a ludo, from the school, ad vilam, to the house. So it's saying in the morning they go to school, and in the evening they come back, right? That's all it's trying to tell you. Then you have, and again, by the way, the a ludo ad vilam, this is a good way to refresh your prepositional phrases. Remember, when you're going away from something, it'll be ablative. That's what ludo is, second declension, ablative singular. And when you're going towards something, it'll be accusative. So ad vilam is accusative because you're going toward the house. Then we have tum libros et tabellas in mensam conlocant et cum puellis in horto vilae sedent. So it's saying then, right, when they get home from school, tum, then they place, conlocant, they place their tabellas et libros et tabellas, their books and their tablets, in mensam, onto the table, you could say. So they put them down, and sedent, they sit, cum puellis, with the girls, in horto, in the garden of the house, right? Vilae is genitive singular. So it's saying that once they get back from school, then they put their stuff down and they go out in the garden to sit. Then you have postea Cornelius filiis et filiabus fabulas narrat. So afterward, meaning after they've done this, Cornelius, the dad, he tells, narrat. So remember, when you have that verb of giving, showing, telling, right, narrare, to tell, you're expecting to tell something, accusative, to someone, dative. So that's what's happening here. You're saying Cornelius tells, what does he tell? Fabulas, stories. And who does he tell it to? To his sons and to his daughters, right? Filiis et filiabus. So they go to school, the sons come back, and then they listen to story time, okay? You'll notice just culturally a couple things happening here. One, the idea that you might have a tutor at home, but an actual school teacher, right? And the tutor kind of takes care of the boys. You see this in a lot of different sort of Latin textbooks that involve families, right? The tutor is kind of the one who teaches them at home and then brings them to school and brings them home, that type of thing. So you're getting introduced to the actual teacher, or Bilius, right? He'll be a character moving forward. And you also should notice that the girls don't go, right? So school is really just for the boys. So you'll notice that the daughters are staying at home. This is a good way to just review your culture of kind of the different roles of sons and daughters and what they do. The sons go off to school, the daughters don't, and then the family kind of comes back together at the end of the day, right? So hopefully this story was pretty straightforward to follow. It's just picking up on all the themes and the grammar from chapter 13, things that we already saw, specifically talking about second declension nouns and how we use them, right? We've seen a lot of these, and we're getting really introduced to them here. So hopefully it was just a good round of practice to let you really get used to them. And hopefully it was pretty straightforward. It's not really doing anything different from the first story in chapter 13. But if you have any questions at all, put them in the comments below. I'll be happy to help you. Otherwise, just keep practicing, keep working your way through it, and you should be fine. Good luck.